I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. The first challenge to President-elect Donald Trump. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. One of Mr. Trump's most vivid campaign promises was this.
We will end the sanctuary cities that have resulted in so many needless deaths. Cities that refuse to cooperate with federal authorities will not receive taxpayer dollars.
I can get more pointed than that. But now a number of mayors across the country are defying the president-elect, saying they will not stop their sanctuary policies.
To be clear about what Chicago is, it always will be a sanctuary city.
We are not going to sacrifice 500,000 people who live amongst us. We're not going to tear families apart.
I think by continuing to be a sanctuary city, we're doing the most American thing that we could possibly do.
So let's analyze what's really happening here. By refusing to obey federal immigration law, the politicians are basically saying we want open borders because anyone who gets into America illegally has a place where they can go with no repercussions. While most migrants are law-abiding people who just want to support themselves and their families, a number of them are criminals or layabouts, simply here to exploit the American system. Those people become part of the sanctuary movement as well. Now, you'll remember that the thug who allegedly murdered Kate Steinle was released by the county of San Francisco after ICE requested he be held in jail so the feds could pick him up. San Francisco let the man go, despite the fact he had 7 felony convictions in America, had been deported 5 times. Kate Steinle is dead because San Francisco refuses to obey federal law, period. There's a lawsuit, civil suit, underway in the case, and the criminal proceeding is crawling along. Now, you would think any decent politician would learn a lesson from the Steinle case, but no. These mayors, all uber liberals, believe they will harvest more votes by showing phony compassion than by promoting public safety and fighting anarchy. If the left believes everybody should be allowed to come into this country, say it, say it. But know that sanctuary policies will never be able to tell the good from the bad. The chaos will continue to rule. So it comes down to what Donald Trump will do to the mayors and counties that defy him on immigration law. Has to do something. And we expect the showdown will develop quickly early next year. And that's the memo now for the top story tonight. Reaction. Joining us from Washington, Newt Gingrich. There is a good chance that the former Speaker of the House, come January, will be advising President Trump on everything, including the sanctuary city deal. So what will you tell him, Mr. Speaker?
Well, first of all, you have to say, Rahm Emanuel's crazy. Here's a mayor whose city is collapsing into violence. One person shot every 2 hours, setting all-time records for murders. And he wants to stop the federal government from getting criminals? I mean, remember, President-elect Trump is talking about a very focused effort to get rid of people who are criminals. Now, you would think that the mayor of Chicago, in the middle of the worst murder pattern in the city's history, would be thrilled to have somebody help him get rid of criminals. This is madness. So my advice to President-elect Trump is pretty simple. 1, you should ask your new Attorney General on day 1 to direct immigration efforts right into the sanctuary cities. 2, you should indicate any mayor who attempts to interpose, a term, by the way, used by the white segregationists 40 years ago, to interpose themselves against the federal government, would be liable to prosecution. And 3, you should ask the Congress immediately, as one of its first items, to pass legislation authorizing cutting off all federal aid. Now, let's see how long Chicagoans like the idea.
But I don't know if that's going to happen.
Of federal aid to Chicago
with the filibuster process in the Senate, we tried to get Kate's law passed, and Reid and his crew filibustered it, couldn't get up, and it was all chaos. Well, but let's take it one by one. Let's take it one by one.
Remember, there are 24 Democratic senators up in 2018.
I know that.
How would you like to go home and defend?
But it's going to take a long time.
Protecting sanctuary cities breaking federal law.
It's going to take a long time for that to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. But I want to go down the list that you just laid out for the folks. The first thing is that the mayors conflate good illegal aliens, the people who are just here to make a living, with the criminals. They don't sort them out. Okay, there's no sorting going on.
Right.
It's just like, we're just not going to, if ICE calls us to detain, and we have to detain someone and hold them, we're not going to do it. We don't care if the guy is a murderer that killed Kate Steinle, the alleged murderer, or some guy who just ran a stop sign. We're just not going to do it. So their responsibility is nothing. And they're doing it for votes. You know what they're doing it for. De Blasio in New York, the only reason he holds office is because minority people vote for him. That's it. So he's never going to cooperate.
Well, but I also think it's important to remember one of the reasons Trump won was a commitment to the rule of law. You know, we're not Venezuela. We're not a country where you get to randomly pick and choose. That's part of why Hillary Clinton was repudiated. And I would say to the mayors, they don't get to pick which federal law they obey.
But they are.
want to come to Congress and
they have been for
I think
decades. They've defied the federal government decades. Now you say if the mayors don't cooperate, they may be prosecuted. We have Is It Legal coming up behind you to see if that's true. But on the philosophy of two sovereign systems, state and federal, very hard for the federal government to prosecute.
Look, we fought a civil war to indicate that there is one sovereign system. It is the United States of America. No state, no city can interpose itself between federal law and the citizens. We've been down this in 1958. The Supreme Court ruled decisively that it's impossible. That would be chaos. It would be anarchy.
Well, there is now.
In fact, Madison himself said that.
That's what we have now.
Which is why part of the reason we're getting President-elect Trump is the country is sick and tired of it.
Well, it'd be interesting to see what he does. Okay, so we assume that you'll advise President Trump, and when he takes office, and that he'll do it, to go to Congress and say we have to have a bill that cuts off funding to cities like San Francisco and New York City and LA and Chicago. These are the biggest cities in the country, if they do not cooperate with Homeland Security. Now, that's going to encompass a lot of debate. You're going to have to write two versions of the bill. You're going to have to reconcile them together. You know how the system works. It's going to take a while for that to happen.
It might take a while. And in the short run, he can redirect federal resources of enforcement into precisely those cities. He can also prosecute anybody who interferes with federal enforcement. An aggressive attorney general can make a very big difference in this case if they insist on enforcing the law.
That's a key.
And then finally,
right.
But, you know, Bill, it's not bad for America to go through the process of writing a law, debating it. I think the more people get involved in this debate, the more angry they're going to be at these mayors, and the more they're going to think this is crazy.
All right. It'll be a very fascinating thing. I do believe this will be on the top of his agenda, this and a tax break, tax cuts and all that when he gets in. Do you think I'm right on that?
You know, I think you're right. And notice he's narrowed it to a really classic focus. Why wouldn't we deport criminals who are here illegally?
Right.
Rapists, murderers, drug dealers. I mean, what kind of argument is Rahm Emanuel going to make for protecting rapists, murderers, and drug dealers in the city of Chicago when he's got this many killings a year?
No, we'll
it's
see.
Really goofy.
Mr. Speaker, thanks. As always, we appreciate it. One footnote, Newt Gingrich is the author of the brand new book, Treason. Certainly worth a look. Good holiday gift. Next on the rundown, can those mayors who refuse to obey federal law actually be charged with crimes? Is it legal on that case? And later, anti-Trump protesters target the church of Pastor Robert Jeffress. He will be here. Those reports after these messages. Is it legal segment tonight? What can happen if you fail to obey the law? Can the feds arrest the mayors of sanctuary cities? Can they do that? You know, attorneys and Fox News analyst Kimberly Guilfoyle, Elise Will. All right, we'll go.
No, they can't.
No.
No, the 10th Amendment prohibits the feds from directly compelling any local agency like the mayors or any law enforcement agency from actually going out and grounding up illegal aliens and following what the feds ask them to do.
All right, so what does the 10th Amendment say?
The 10th Amendment says that any rights that aren't directly given to, or rights that aren't directly given to the the feds are given then to the state. So it says that you can't.
Right. I don't understand why the 10th Amendment would prohibit.
Well, because there's something that's been written into or read into into the 90s actually in Supreme Court rulings called the commandeering clause, which says you can't commandeer, again, local agencies like state agencies through the feds to actually go and arrest people or do other things through the federal agency.
Okay. Basically, the states are understood to be sovereign entities distinct from the federal government, so you cannot then usurp their power and authority.
Okay, but isn't it true that federal law trumps, pardon the pun, state law, right? Federal law trumps it. Okay, so the federal government says, call San Francisco, let's do the styling case. Says, look, you got to hold this guy for us because he's a dangerous man, and we're going to come, our agents are going to come pick him up.
Right.
County of San Francisco says, blank you, we're not holding him, kicks him, goes out and kills Kate, allegedly. Okay? Now, you're telling me that the federal government cannot go in and arrest the sheriff?
Well, the sheriff, or say here, de Blasio, the thought is...
No. Let's stay on the sheriff.
No, you can't.
No. They cannot arrest the sheriff for defying.
They can ask them to cooperate. They cannot make them
What if he had a subpoena for the guy, which I believe the feds did have, and they ignored the federal subpoena, they being the county officials of San Francisco?
The ICE, in that case, had a hold on him. That's what they had.
Right.
And then ICE just dropped it. So that was ICE's fault. They just dropped it.
But if they had a subpoena to hold a fugitive, all right, and the local authorities said, I'm not going to hold them.
That's different.
Could the feds go in and arrest?
Yes.
Then,
that's different.
Good.
Then they're failing.
That's what's going to happen here. That's what's going to happen here. The new attorney general is going to tell Rahm Emanuel, you hold, all right, for us, these people. All right, who the FBI knows have criminal convictions.
Because then you're getting into harboring.
Wait. Right. So if Rahm Emanuel says, I'm not going to hold them, Guilfoyle, then the feds can come in and put cuffs on Emanuel.
Well, then this could be problematic for him. And yes, maybe under this administration they will move forward to do so. But ordinarily, it would have to be they are doing something like harboring a fugitive, shielding them specifically more than a failure
if you don't hold them when the government tells you to hold them, that's harboring.
Then you're harboring, and that's a felony
they can arrest
for 5 years.
5-year felony.
Okay. So I think we solved it. And I hope the Trump administration.
One other thing is Congress can then take funds away. That's really a way to do it.
I mean, the fun thing is going to take forever, though. Mark my words.
Still, it's
all right. Now, a bunch of executive orders have been signed by President Obama. I want to go through them to see if Trump can overturn them. Like he said, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to overturn these orders. The first one is the transgendered rights. What was this, Guilfoyle?
Right. So bottom line, this was a directive advised that the Department of Education appropriately read Title IX, the section of federal code concerning gender discrimination in education. We talked a lot about this on the show. To include transgender individuals, meaning a school may not discriminate against them in any way.
And that means they have to put a different bathroom.
Correct.
Now, can Trump go in and say that's out?
Yes. President-elect Trump can go in and say, excuse me, it doesn't apply specifically this title to transgender. That could be canceled.
The second one is the DREAM Act, right? Okay.
And
this is where President Obama said a certain category of illegal aliens are not going to be deported under any circumstances. He can overturn that.
That was a deportation of illegal immigrants who come into the country as children, and also the people that protect the parents of these people. So the immigrants that come in as children, and then their parents. Trump can go into, these were 2 executive orders under one umbrella, which was DACA, D-A-C-A.
And DAPA.
Yeah, and DAPA.
He can rescind both.
The DREAM. Rescind both, and it's gone.
And you saw President Obama talk specifically about this and address it.
We'll see if Trump does that, because he'll be attacked if he does that, obviously, as being a mean guy. The third one is the contraceptive mandate in Obamacare, where the nuns have to pay for birth control. He can overturn that.
So he could give the Little Sisters of the Poor a condition-free waiver. That's all they're asking for. And he's already specified that he wants to encourage religious liberty
right now that'll make that court.
So we'll see that in the first couple of weeks. I think those 3 at least.
Those 3. Those will be gone.
Ladies, thank you.
All right.
Directly ahead, things getting worse on college campuses around the country. We'll show you something you're not going to believe. Then protesters now targeting churches. We'll tell you what's happening in Dallas. The Factor is coming. Right back. Unresolved Problem segment tonight. Madness on college campuses. Not since the late 1960s has there been so much craziness in the college ranks. But this time it's the administration that's often the embarrassment, not the kids. At George Mason University in Virginia, this man, Senior Assistant Director of Admissions Andrew Bunting, says that any person voting for Donald Trump is a, quote, piece of worthless trash, unquote. Best we can tell, no action's been taken against Mr. Bunting by the university. Joining us from Washington, Lisa Booth. You're in New York City, Juan Williams. You're the chancellor of George Mason. First of all, if that happened, there'd be no students, nobody go. But I'm pointing you.
Yes.
Right, what do you do to Bunting?
I would give him some sanction because I think he damaged
what's the sanction?
record.
You're the chancellor.
Well,
it's up to you.
I'd say, look, you know what? Take a week off. We want to be very
week.
Yeah, take a week off, no pay, because we want to be very clear with the students that nobody at George Mason is viewed in terms of their political beliefs as a worthless piece of blank, right? That's just not happening here. But I would say this, that he has a right to speak out. I think the kids who are marching and protesting have a right to speak out.
Well, wait a minute. You think he has a right to speak out when he's the admissions, one of the admissions deciders?
Remember, he did this on his personal...
Doesn't matter. I don't care where he did it. It doesn't matter because kids have to write essays to get into the school. You know that, right?
Of course.
Personal essays.
Yes.
And he's telling anybody who doesn't agree with his political point of view, you're a worthless piece of trash. How could he possibly be the admissions committee?
Well,
let's go to Lisa.
I don't think that's
You
good.
see my point, Lisa? If you're a student and you're applying to George Mason University, you have to write an essay. I mean, you have to tell the people about yourself. And if you hold a certain belief system, maybe that'll be included in your essay. And one of the admissions deciders is telling you, if you don't agree with me, you're a worthless piece of you-know-what? Come on. How can he possibly do his job?
He can't. And that's the big problem here. And this is why he should be let go, because his job is supposed to be objective with the admissions process, and clearly he is anything but. And I think the university needs to take it one step further and do a review of the applications process to ensure that no students and previous applicants, that they were not discriminated against based off of their political ideology or Christian beliefs, because the statement that this individual made on his Facebook post was related to gay marriage and was actually incited something from the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has labeled groups like the Family Research Council hate groups. So
I want to get it right. So you'd fire him outright? He's done.
And I think he needs emotional therapy, puppies. Maybe he needs to attend a cry-in.
That might be out of your purview as a chancellor to supply him with
You're not
with a dog.
You're psychologist Krauthammer. But I will say this to you. This is a period where I think we need healing in the country. We do not need to punish people. I think he was wrong, Lisa. I think Bill O'Reilly thinks he's wrong. So we give him some sanction. But I don't think we need to exacerbate, worsen the situation by start
how can he do his job? How can he do it?
According to the president, what the president wrote in explaining this bill was that there's a committee made up of 14 people, and they all look at the essays, they all look at the kids, and if there was any evidence of bias,
here's how it really works. All right, he's not the admissions director; he's the assistant.
Right.
The assistant goes through the applications and weeds them out, and the ones that he deems worthy go to the admissions director.
Well,
that's how it works.
No.
This guy has
there's a bunch of people.
If you think that at any major college there's a bunch of people looking at every admissions form, you're out of your mind.
No, not every, but they go in groups. I was on the board of my college twice, and I'm telling you,
only the upper echelon get into the group thing. Go ahead, Lisa.
But here's the thing, too. Who cares if 14 individuals looked at it? The problem is he's at the helm of the admissions process. That's the problem here, is he's one of the individuals who is in charge of the process. Further, another thing we haven't addressed yet is the fact that George Mason is a public university. So what about the liability to the school if the school itself had been biased and discriminated against individuals because of their religious or political beliefs?
Can be sued.
Wait a second. How can you be sued, Lisa? Lisa, how can you be sued for stating personal opinions on a Facebook page?
No, because
I think
if there has been proven bias in the past applicants.
Here's how the school can be sued. If you applied to George Mason and were turned down, and you found out that your grade average in high school, your ACTs or SATs, all of that criteria, all right, was acceptable to George Mason, a la other students at the same level had been accepted, and you were turned down after this guy said that, and then you had written an essay, said, I come from a traditional family, you could slap a lawsuit on those people
but that's
for
a
$10 million.
small set. I think, look, I understand your point, but I'm just just telling you, I think that when you're dealing with hate groups, and this guy was concerned that
this guy's a hate group. He's a one-man hate group.
No, he's saying
he's a one-man hate group
because he has his personal beliefs.
Yeah, it's hateful.
Do you believe that? Come on.
I do.
Well, I think if he'd said it about liberals,
right, here's what I would do to this guy. I gotta go. But here's what I would do to this guy. I would put him in charge of grooming the campus. That's what he'd do.
But can you imagine if he said this about Muslims?
Yeah,
oh, my goodness.
He'd be the campus groomer. Plenty more ahead as the Factor moves along this evening. Gutfeld and McGurk have some pithy things to say about the anti-Trump protesters. But next, those folks now targeting the church of Pastor Robert Jeffress in Dallas. He will be here, and we hope you stay tuned for those reports. Back to follow-up segment tonight. The anti-Trump protests continue in Dallas. Joining us now from Dallas is Pastor Jeffress. So were you surprised that these demonstrators, not that many of them, 50, the reporter said, targeted your church?
I really wasn't surprised. And by the way, to correct the report, I did not preach in support of Trump. I'm a well-known supporter of Trump, but I never brought that into the pulpit. But look, Bill, I think what they're really protesting is not just my support of Trump, but our church's conservative belief system. Look, we are not a hate church. We're not Westboro Baptist Church. We're a church that simply embraces the tenets of historic Christianity for the last 2,000 years as revealed in the Bible. There's nothing hateful about our members at all.
Okay. Has this inconvenienced your services or yourself or your family?
Well, not yet. They're saying they're going to come back on Sunday. And look, we've had protesters before in the past. Our members respond by going and taking them coffee and donuts. And so there's nothing hateful on our response, and I don't believe it will inconvenience us at all. Okay.
Now, the guy who's leading this, Dominique Alexander, well known to the Dallas police, he was sentenced to jail for hurting a child. And
That's right.
And this guy, he's got it out for you personally, doesn't he?
He does. And look, this is the same guy who organized protests against the Dallas police last summer, during which 5 police officers were killed. He's concerned about Mr. Trump's hateful rhetoric and my hateful rhetoric. And yet here was a guy 2 years ago, or several years ago, who was charged with causing severe bodily injury to his girlfriend's 2-year-old. And he's concerned about my rhetoric. That is nothing but hypocrisy.
He was convicted, we might say. You know, we would never even bring that up in the interest of fairness unless there was a conviction in the case. He actually served some time, and then the state botched it, and he got out earlier than he should have. I'm not even going to get into that. So you are going to meet these protests with the Christian kindness. You're not going to get involved. You're not going to try to persuade them that they're on the wrong track, are you?
No, I'm not going to do that at all. But look, I think this says something about the secular progressive agenda that you talk about so often, Bill. I mean, the fact that what we believe about marriage, that it should be between a man and a woman, and that we're pro-life, somehow that becomes radical. Why is that? It's because our culture has changed. But the truth is, culture may change, people change, the Word of God never changes. And that's what we rest our belief system on.
It's obvious that the society in which we live has gone from being a traditional society to a society that's now split between traditional people and secular progressives, and the battle is on, and Trump won this battle, but the next battle might be lost. And, you know, the other side, secular progressives, not going to give up. Go ahead, last word.
No, they're not going to give up, but I think we see the hypocrisy of liberalism on display with these protests, and that is the most intolerant people in the world are those who cry loudest for tolerance, and I think you're seeing that in these protests.
All right, Pastor, we appreciate your time. Thank you. When we come right back, Gutfeld and McGurk have some thoughts on the anti-Trump protesters. Then big-time author James Patterson and I, your humble correspondent, have teamed up to help the kids. Mr. Patterson will be here up ahead. Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly in the What the Heck Just Happened segment tonight. As you may know, scores of protesters have been arrested in Portland, Oregon for various things. Thanks to some excellent reporting from KGW-TV, we now know that about half of those arrested did not even bother to vote. Here now, Bernard McGurk and Greg Gutfeld. What say you, Gutfeld?
Well, you know what? The other half didn't vote, and the other half voted for Fidel Castro. They were in the wrong country at the time. Look, here's my point. This is interesting. They're reacting against democracy. So if they were so angry about the system, they would go loot perhaps a government building. But the problem is you can't get free shoes from the sanitation department. So they instead, this is not about an actual protest. This is about having the opportunity to destroy and to take.
Right, to wreak havoc. You see it the same way, McGurk?
Of course I do. I agree with Greg 100%.
Thank you.
In the past, protesters were inspired by Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. This pathetic rabble is inspired by Chelsea Handler and Miley Cyrus crying on Instagram. How sad is this? I mean, you've heard of microaggressions. Well, President-elect Trump just saying that is turned into a macroaggression. These people are losers. They're part of the Free Stuff Brigade, the campus social justice warrior, snowflake brigade, these types of people. They're losers. And they say also that the chant is that, not my president, not my president. Well, as Rich Lowry wrote today in an article, saying that last week was racist if you said that about President Obama. It's just they're a bunch of hypocrites is what they are.
Okay.
Sore losing hypocrites.
Now, protest, you'd both agree, can be good, right? Can change things.
Absolutely.
And, okay. But is there a responsibility on the part of the protester? So we now know that half of these people arrested didn't bother to show up at the polls, couldn't care less about the electoral process, obviously, but they've got enough time and energy to go out and sack a Burger King.
But you know what it is? It's the media that is refusing to distinguish between protest and rioting. They see it as part of the same exercise where protesting is yoga and rioting is Pilates. They don't actually say, they are part of the problem because they conflate the two.
But what would you do if you were news director?
I would call it what it is, which is a crime. It's criminality. Criminality should not be excused for the greater good.
Okay, so but it's hard because sometimes the peaceful protesters and the people who really are sincere are marching right next to, Fidel Castro's nephew.
And the media likes them both. They're inciting. The reporters are.
You think so? Do you think they like
this? I really do. Cheerleading on the streets with those people, egging them on essentially, and then looking the other way when the guy gets beaten to a pulp in Chicago. They don't say anything.
They don't cover
it. Which is a tacit endorsement of what happened. Otherwise, they'd be outraged.
All right, so that's an interesting point. So you guys both feel that the media enjoys this kind of thing because it makes Trump look bad, and says that even though we, the media, didn't succeed in harming Trump, in making him lose, these people, we sympathize with them because Trump's such a bad guy.
Well, also, they share the assumptions that the activists have. Look at the rise in hate crime, how they're saying it's all over the country. There's no effort to actually discern whether they are hoaxes or not. If they're decided...
we said that last night.
Yeah, and some of these crimes are done to smear Trump and this amazing phenomenon that occurred.
The Veritas video showed that.
Winners do not deface things. Unless it's after a championship.
But look, I mean, you have to be honest. There are individuals who support Donald Trump, like David Duke, who are bad people.
Hey, the media before the election said that if the Trump supporters protested, it would be a threat to our democracy. And now they're saying this is very healthy, this is a beautiful thing. Yeah. And by the way, where was the obsession? Remember Chris Christie and Bridgegate? Everybody obsessed over one ambulance that got stuck in traffic, maybe an old lady was delayed going to the hospital. These people are stopping emergency vehicles the left and right. Who's dying? Where's the media outrage over that?
Because they like the protest.
Because they like it, exactly right. And if these protesters were serious, they would self-immolate. I say that's a serious protest.
Self-immolate,
yes,
everyone.
That's a real protest.
I wouldn't go that far, Bernie. It's how funny your name's Bernie.
Something amazing just happened. Gutfeld McGurk actually made some good, solid points in this segment, which is...
Hangover will do that to you.
Yeah, now I'm confused. All right, gentlemen, give police a chance on deck. Then the fact of tip of the day, once again, I have to defend the Fox News channel. Moments away. I'm back at the book segment tonight, getting young kids to read and to be polite without banishing them to the basement. New children's book called Give Please a Chance does that. It's written by mega-selling author James Patterson and me, your humble correspondent. Mr. Patterson came up with the idea, and he joins us now. Now, why did you call me up? Why did you pick me for this?
Because I know you care about kids. You write kids' books, and you have this big audience, which we're talking to right now.
Right.
And I like the idea of people getting together who don't necessarily think exactly the same way, but can agree on something, and they try to move it forward.
Right, and it didn't hurt that you and I have been very successful in a book marketing situation.
That helps.
People knows right away when it's Patterson and O'Reilly on the book cover, they're going to check it out.
I would buy it.
And the reason that we're both doing this and devoting our time to it is twofold. Number one, we want kids ages 2 to 6, which is, you'd say that was a target audience, right? 2 to 6.
Yeah.
We want them to start holding books and knowing that you read, and books have pages and pictures. So pictures are fabulous. So that's number one, to get them involved with books, which is, I think, the secret to education, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think there are two things. One, I think the parents and the grandparents and the uncles and aunts and whatever have a lot of fun reading this book, reading with the kids or reading to the kids, depending on how old the kids are. That's the one piece of it. The second thing is, and we've talked about this, the idea of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of kids actually growing up as being please and thank you kids.
Yeah, polite kids.
And they can become, please, believe it or not, please and thank you teenagers someday.
You have to brainwash the urchins. You have to inculcate it.
Exactly right.
But it's a fun brainwashing because, again, the kids, it's kind of magical. They open the book and
waterboarding is fun. It's
right. Waterboarding with Ned. Now, but it's a great Christmas thing.
It is, and it's a fun. The pictures are great. The kids will really enjoy it, and they repeat over and over. Please, please, please.
Now, were you prepared when you went out with me to do interviews for what happened at CBS this morning, which we'll show you guys in the morning and tip of the day, where when I show up, it's all politics, it's all controversy. Were you prepared for that?
No, I thought it was going to be more softballs, because I usually get softballs, and then they threw a slider. I was like, wow, a slider. That's
I told you on the phone, I don't know whether you remember this, I said, look, if you get involved with me, then you're going to bring all of this stuff, because...
No, you were very fair about it.
I'm going to try to be fair, but I'm not going to take any guff, and I'm going to defend my network, which
and you
I
did.
But that, I think, is going to be helpful to the book, rather than a detriment. Some people say, well...
I think it's a good thing.
Because you're so controversial, or you're not controversial, you just write good books. I'm controversial. But because I draw attention to the project, so that these people who might not have heard of the children...
The thing is, we both agree this is a really good book. And honestly, even one of the things I think people ought to do with this book is give it to teachers at preschools.
Yeah,
this is a really good preschool book.
Well, I gave it to some urchins in my neighborhood. Like a test drive, and I picked the dimmest urchins, the dumbest kids, and I gave it to them, and they all loved it. And they don't just read it once; they read it like 10 times.
Well, that's what happens, and that's why this habit. That's why Bill and I both know Latin, because we went to Catholic school, but that was painful. They're going to learn to say please, and it's going to be fun.
And when I say the dumb kids, I was one of the dumb kids, so I can recognize them. And usually the dumb kids turn out to be brilliant when they get older. So, Jim, thanks for including me on this project. It's so much fun.
It's been a pleasure. Everything
and
about
I think it's going to do very well for Christmas and Hanukkah. And you're a master.
And tomorrow.
And tomorrow, right. Forgot to mention that both James Patterson and I are donating all the proceeds we get from Give Please a Chance to charities that help children. I'm giving my money to Child Help in Arizona, which has that child abuse hotline, the 24-hour thing all across the country. So, we're trying to help kids with that book. Factor tip of the day, being loyal, in a moment. But first, we are here to make your life easier, and you must know that by now. So on the holiday gift-giving front, we have BillO'Reilly.com premium membership gift certificates. And for everyone you buy, you get your choice of any of my books free, plus complimentary copy of the Constitution. You buy 3 gift memberships for folks, you get 3 different books. Super deal for Christmas and Hanukkah. And if you'd like me to sign copies of the Killing series, including Rising Sun, please get that order in now. There will be a cutoff for signed books. Now the mail. Jason DeSalvo, Congers, New York, is a Loyal Factor viewer for 15 years. I thought the Talking Points memo entitled The Inclusion Delusion was the best and most honest I have seen. Thanks, Jason. It's posted on BillO'Reilly.com. Frankie Velasco, Claremont, Florida. Mr. Bill, you are no longer independent. You now can be officially included as a member in good standing of the GOP. That's just nonsense. Points I made envelop all Americans, Frank. Timmy McDevitt, St. Petersburg, Florida. Although brilliant, the talking points will have no impact. Extreme liberals will never listen. Most likely true, Tim, but they're a very small group, extreme liberals. The country needs to be convinced that partisan politics are not inclusive, and the memo proved that. Bill Randall, Dallas, Texas. Bill, I applaud you for not allowing Richard Goodstein to spin. You were brusque, but it was appropriate because he was distorting the facts. Brian Soma, El Dorado Hills, California. Bill, your tip mentioned that the NFL was stacking the pregame anthem with military people. The military pays for that. Not anymore, Brian. The advertising fees have been dropped, and some returned to the military by the league. That doesn't happen anymore. Penny and Steve Coyne, Everett, Washington. Hey, Bill, VIP tickets for the Spin Stops Here show at the Tacoma Dome sold out in 10 minutes. So glad we got them. So am I, guys. Thank you. Miller, Waters, and I will see you on March 25th at the Tacoma Dome. Omaha at the Century Link the day before, Friday, March 24th. Also, Tulsa at the BOK Center, Friday, January 13th. Reading, Pennsylvania at the Santander, Saturday, January 14th. And the Westbury Theater on Long Island, June 17th. Tickets make tremendous Christmas gifts. You know that. Info on BillO'Reilly.com. Jack Lennon, San Jose, California. I am in 5th grade. We're studying Pearl Harbor in World War II. I told my teacher about killing the rising sun. Is it appropriate for us? You might have to wait to 7th grade, Jack. Book is somewhat violent, but keep studying that history. Check out the Fox News Factor website, which is different from BillO'Reilly.com. Also, we'd like you to spout off about the Factor from anywhere in the world. O'Reilly at FoxNews.com, O'Reilly at FoxNews.com. Name in town, name in town, name in town. If you wish to opine, word of the day, you can be malapert when writing to the Factor, but only up to a point. Malapert. Now, Bernie Sanders has a book out, brand new book. We want him on the Factor. People, authors who come on here sell gazillions of books. Bernie is afraid to come on. I can't believe it. So I had to send Waters out to find Bernie, which he did. We'll have that for you tomorrow. Again, thanks for watching us tonight. I am Bill O'Reilly. Please remember that the spin stops here. So we're definitely looking out for you.